is Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. I'm John Dwanzik, and this is the regular meeting of the Avon Lake Board of Municipal Utilities. The time is 6:30 p.m., I should have noted. With me tonight are fellow board members. To my right, Mrs. Schnabel, and to my left, Mr. Mondello and Mr. Rush. Missing tonight is Mr. Ricky. He is excused. Also with us tonight is Chief Utilities Executive, Mr. Robert Monroe, and at the table before me is Chief of Utility Operations, Greg Urinich, and outside counsel, Anthony Coyne. Also in the audience tonight is Officer Bockelman from the Avon Lake Police Force. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed on Facebook and on YouTube. There's an opportunity for public input when that is announced. If you have comments from Cyber World, you can enter them in the comments section, and Mr. Urinich will be reading them. With only 4 members here tonight, it still takes a vote of 3 affirmatives to approve any votes that are taken on motions. All votes are done by voice vote, with the exception of a vote to go into executive session, which there is one scheduled tonight. When that comes up, that will be done by a roll call vote. I think I got everything, Mr. Rush. So with that having been said, we'll move on to the first order of business, which is the approval of the February 4th minutes. Are there any comments on those? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. Next item is the aforementioned public speakers. Mr. Urinich, do you have anything?
No comments yet, Mr. Chairman.
As there are no members of the public in the audience, officer, anything you'd like to say? Thank you. Okay, we will, well, you're a citizen of Avon Lake, so we'll move on then to correspondence. Mr. Monroe.
I do not have any correspondence to pass along this evening.
Next item is expenditures. If you will take out your goldenrod sheets, we will review those. If someone would like to make the motion, we will proceed from there. Mr.
I can do it.
Okay.
I move to approve the expenditures dated January 30th through February 13th, 2025.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rush. Discussion. Now I have items 21 through 25. Mr. Monroe, how often do we get these deliveries, just to give us an idea of how long the budget lasts?
These chemicals represent operating supplies, chemicals used at a water reclamation facility, the water filtration plant. Various chemicals used in the process. I'll let Mr. Urinich explain, for instance, the bonded chemicals expenditure line item 21, sodium silicofluoride, how long that would last.
So on average, that would last for approximately 6 to 8 months. Go through it a little bit quicker during the summer when the flows are higher, but based off of an average, that's about how long it would last.
Okay.
Really, it's just kind of different. Like for the chlorine, for example, we
So I'm sorry, Mr. Urinich, would you start again, please?
Yeah, for the chlorine, we have limits as to how much we can keep on site at a time. So we typically get deliveries about every week and a half to 3 weeks, just once again, depending upon the time of year and how much water we're producing.
So looking at this, we have 82% of the budget left, which is about 1/6 has been used. we would expect that this would hold out for the year if prices stay the same.
Correct.
Okay. That's really what I was getting at, Mr. Monroe.
And to that point on prices, we do have the prices that are bid under contract for this year, for the 12 months.
Okay. Next item I have is on Fund 723. We noticed that, well, actually, both 701 and 723, we have, a rather large amount of money going out the door to Mr. Talaric for taxes. Are we not supposed to be tax exempt?
We are tax exempt. And again, I'll turn this over to Mr. Yurnich and let him explain. They represent real estate taxes on some of the properties that we did purchase. And he'll provide more detail.
Mr. Y?
So those are paid for the previous year, and because there was a property transfer, we aren't able to apply for tax exempt status until this year. So once that goes through, there's a couple of properties that we have leaseback options on. Those will not become tax exempt until there's no longer income generated from those properties. But on the rest of them, we would see a refund for that money later in the year once the
Okay, and
tax exempt.
it will be refunding what we are paying here, and there will also be no further tax
Correct.
at that time. Okay. That's all I have. Anyone else with questions?
Just a quick
Mondello?
question on some of these that cross funds where it's the same expense line. Are all expenses always equally applied to all funds?
Not always. It's dependent upon what the expense is. Some of them will be split 25% across the 4 funds, depending upon what it may be as far as salaries. It just really kind of depends on which part of the budget is benefiting from that purchase.
Do we have a schedule of any of that?
Yeah, so we do have the breakdown on the chart of accounts. I can provide that to you.
Oh, okay.
But should that be pursuant to Mr. Mondello's question? Should that be something that's in the regulations, like how we apportion certain things, or?
I'll have to double check. I believe that there is under our financial management section of the regulations. I think that there is something in there. A good example would be, for instance, if we purchased a new table for here in the boardroom, that expense would be split, across 25% across the 4 funds. Whereas if you were purchasing activated carbon, that's only used at the water plant, the water filtration plant. So that would be 100% associated to the water filtration plant. Water meters, because those are what are used for billing purposes, there's a percentage breakdown on that. So yes.
Because you bill sewer and water.
Correct.
Both those.
Correct.
Okay.
Good.
Anyone else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The expenses are approved. Next item is the expansion of the administration building. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we discussed at our last meeting on February 4th, I requested a proposal from Sixmo Architecture for design and construction administration services to expand this building to accommodate staff needs. We have outgrown portions of this building. This building is 23 years old, and we are looking to meet the needs of the organization as we continue to grow for the next 20 years. So they did provide a proposal to me, and it was based on some of the initial items that we discussed with Sixmo, but it will include some already known items that we needed to address at this existing facility, one being the roof on this building. So the scope of these services would include, providing all the specs and design for full roof replacement on existing. It'll also look at adding additional Americans with Disability Act, ADA, accessible bathrooms, restrooms. A big item, the new engineering services, office space, plan room for drawings, whatnot. When this building was designed, there wasn't a specific dedicated server room for IT. We have made space work. It's not ideal, and we will have a secured, dedicated.
Climate-controlled,
Yes. Yes. As we've discussed before, at the water filtration plant, we're in the process of doing that over there as well. Having secured records room for, sensitive information, personnel files and whatnot, meeting spaces and training rooms. So those are some of the items. We have not, got into any type of preliminary design or anything, but the scope of services will include the preliminary design, full detailed design, all the permitting, the bid specifications, putting this out to bid, and answering RFIs during the bid process, and then construction management services. So taking this all the way through build and construction. The total price for this task order, because this will be a task order, we already have an existing master services agreement with Sixmo. So this would be a task order for their professional services in a lump sum amount of $120,000. And then we would also, as standard on a lot of our projects, we would ask for an additional 5% contingency if we run across any out of scope items during the process. To give you a comparison, when this building was built, the professional services for design and construction administration was a little over $170,000. So I feel that this price is very fair, and we do recommend approval of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. Questions from the membership? I would point out that you could have easily pointed out, we did not even have an engineer in the organization when this building was built. So we squeezed him in for a while here. He's now in several rooms over in the some of the acquired real estate, but eventually all that will be raised for the new expanded water plant. So really, the whole engineering group is now 4 people.
If you count our part-time inspectors and our intern, currently right now there's 8.
So that's quite a bit of office space, and quite frankly, I'd like to say this, a little shout out to Mr. Gaydar. It's been a world of difference since we've had a chief engineer in here, and prior to this building was built around 2002, you say?
2002.
Prior to that, we weren't on any big capital growth in the plants or anything, but we've done the water plant a couple times, the sewer plant, the sewer separation. Just wouldn't have been possible without having an engineering department like we have. And so hats off if I was wearing one.
Yes.
The
No.
engineering department.
I'm sure that Mr. Gaydar and staff appreciate that, and I will echo that. We've for a number of years now we've partnered on our bundle projects with the city, as the chairman stated during sewer separations, and we handle all of the inspection services and management of the project, and that's a kind of a value-added service to City of Avon Lake and Avon Lake taxpayers, that we are saving them money that they traditionally would have to pay on a project. So it's an in-kind service that we provide, and it's also been very successful.
Right.
And the current administration and Public Works and everyone, we work well together, and we want to continue that. So this is it's overdue to get this going. We did 2 years ago, we had budgeted to do this, and we had held off as we were looking at acquiring other properties, and we wanted to make sure we were doing things appropriately. So again, we're looking forward to this. Another component is looking at our customer service space, where our customer service staff is. We're at a full complement right now, which is the first time that we've been at full complement in a number of years. But we could easily, in the future, with our growth in Lorain County alone, we could have to add additional employees, and we would then be in another situation that engineering is currently in. So we want to make sure that we're planning appropriately. This goes to all of our master planning efforts that this board has historically done and been very good at. So we want to continue that.
Right. One of the reasons that we also put this building here, speaking as one of the older board members, was that after 9/11, the possibility of, entry and, breaching of security at the water plant was a real thing. And the building that's over there was where we used to meet. And there really was no hard separation between that and the water plant. So it was a wise idea by a couple of chairmen removed from me to acquire this. This used to be a driving range where this, so you probably still find golf balls.
We do.
But to acquire this for next to nothing and build this building here, which goes again to the, is it within our purview to buy real estate? I suggest that it is.
Yes.
And this has been a very good investment for us, I think. So there is a recommended motion. Would someone like to make it?
I can make it.
Mrs. Schnabel.
I move to authorize the CUE to execute a task order with Sixmo Architecture for design and construction management services in the amount of $120,000, plus an additional 5% contingency for any out-of-scope items.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rush. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion passes. Next item is project updates. I'll ask why. Mr. Y, would you like to give us those?
So for the power plant update, really not much of an update, but we did get one of our employees flew the drone and got a good picture of the site. They're continuing with the cleanup and will be for a little while longer. But this is taken from the east, looking towards the west at the power plant site. The next picture is zoomed in a little bit. You can kind of see that a lot of these structures have been really cleared out. They're just going to be continuing with that for the next couple of months. Once the weather gets a little bit warmer, I plan on meeting on site with staff over there again and kind of get some updates, but they're continuing with the organizing and removal of debris.
It's hard to judge, by the colors at this time of the year, but I'm sure you're taking soil samples throughout, the demolition here. Somebody is.
We are not, but they're environmental consultants.
Yeah, well, that's what I
yes,
mean.
yes.
Somebody's taking them because whoever ends up with this property will want that. And it's a lot easier to get them now than, after you start not remediating, but making it look nice again. So hopefully we're thoroughly doing that. I mean, it wouldn't, to my eye, look like a very clean site, but it's probably not as dirty as it looks because it's just wet and winter and everything. And it was mostly covered in concrete, most of what you are now seeing. So hopefully it's in, pretty decent shape. Go ahead, please.
All right. ETL Design Services, no update there. Moving on to the water filtration plant. They've made progress, significant progress on the chemical feed building. They have poured the bottom parts of all of the support structures there, the concrete. They've erected a temporary second level where they're going to be continuing to improve vertically. The next picture is another view of that, but that has been their focus on that part of the project. The next pictures move over to the filter improvements. The pipe at the bottom, you can see they're installing. Last meeting, I had shown the manifold that would be collecting the filtrate from the new filters. They have that installed. They're going to be making that connection on the 28th. That was one of those tasks that we had said needed to be done during the winter when we're at our low flows, because we're going to have to be shut down for several hours, and the summertime that's just not possible. So that's coming up here the end of this month. Just another view of that same area of the filtrate. Moving on to the SCADA communication upgrade. Myself and members of the IT and OT, the informational technology, operational technology companies, we had met with CISA to go over the review that we had performed in December of last year. Overall, the results were very positive. We have a lot of good things in place. They gave us kind of an assessment that we can use to focus our future improvements. We're taking a look at those now. Some of them, like the dedicated server rooms, are obviously on our list already. Some of the other things, we've got to do a little bit of research. They don't recommend specifics. For example, things with multi-factor authentication, anytime somebody's logging in to use a computer. Mm-hmm. It's important, but we've got to find that balance where we have that safety net there, but we don't want to intrude on people's ability to accomplish their tasks. So that's kind of where we're going to be focusing a lot of our efforts on that front. Any questions on that one?
Any questions for Mr. Urinich?
For the TechWind project, one of the things that is a requirement for any chemical that we feed, it has to be NSF certified, National Sanitation Foundation. It was kind of there's two different standards that apply to sodium hypochlorite, the chemical that this building will be producing. There's a standard for the equipment, and there's a standard for the chemical. Ohio EPA regulations, if you have on-site sodium hypochlorite generation, typically you would fall under NSF 61. The equipment would have to be approved, but they don't require the NSF 60, which is for the chemical. That one was presenting a little bit of difficulty just because in order to get the equipment certified, you would have to document every O-ring, anything that touches the material as it moves through the generation process has to be documented. That would have required a lot more involvement from both TechWind, and because it was a government-funded project, that could have taken a long time to procure. Had a discussion with the Ohio EPA because this is off-site. We are going to go with the NSF 60, so it looks like we're going to be able to move forward with that.
Okay. Any delays expected from that? Okay, good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Urinich. Anything else from the board? All right. Let's move on to CUE report. Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have one item to report on this evening. Last week, I attended virtually our bi-monthly Water Utility Council that I serve on. I had a representative from the Department of Environmental Financing, the chief of that division, Jonathan Bernstein, who we have a great relationship with over the years. And specifically, I had asked him to attend our meeting to discuss the funding. We hear a lot of rumors coming out of Washington and the new Trump administration and some of the executive orders that have been issued regarding water and wastewater infrastructure funding. And Mr. Bernstein put everyone's concerns to rest that water and wastewater infrastructure funding is and continues to be a priority for the Trump administration. They have not seen any delay in any of the federal funding coming to the states as part of the state revolving loan funds. And so we do not anticipate at this point any issues. So that was good news, good to hear. As we currently have our water bundle project for 2025 out for bid, we would, depending on the pricing, but most likely finance that through OWDA and the State Revolving Loan Fund. And currently there are no issues with obtaining that funding. So that was a good update to hear, and I wanted to pass that along. That is all I have.
Okay. Next item then is member reports and miscellaneous. Any members with reports? The chairman would like to request to be absent from the next meeting. Mr. Rush, hopefully you can take over the chair at that time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have. Okay, next item is public speakers. 3 minutes, Mr. Mosier.
Members of the Avon Lake Municipal Utilities Board, my name is Gregory Mosier, and I live at 125 Ashwood Drive. I'm a concerned citizen, and I maintain an Ohio EPA Class 3 water plant operator's license, and I'm a former water plant operator for the city of Avon Lake Municipal Utilities. Incompetence seems to be a tradition here at Avon Lake Regional Water. Case in point, any citizen can look at the fencing around the water filtration plant as I drive by and see that the barbed wire was installed backwards. This could have been fixed by Bobby Kamifsky at any time over the decade and a half as head of maintenance at the water plant, but it was never addressed. You continue to concern yourselves with real estate speculation as needed, not as needed as inferred by the charter with the city, but for unplanned future expansion that is not part of the charter. And you have with the city. You're about to agree to renovate this building that we were in and all expenditures related to that, but you still can't staff the water plant correctly. It's been over a decade and you still can't think of how to find qualified operators. Tonight, I would like to address staffing issues you continue to face that are, in my opinion, a direct result of the incompetence and failure to plan by you, your administration, and management staff. How many employees over the last 2 decades started their time with Avon Lake Municipal Utilities in lower level positions? Specifically, how many skilled workers started off as janitors at the water filtration plant? Off the top of my head, I can tell you that Mike Brass, Dale Sadowski, Joe at the wastewater plant, and myself all become operators, and Tim Roten moved to work at the outside crew after spending time washing floors and windows at the water filtration plant, helping with various duties at the admin building, ETLs, and wastewater. The admin building that you're currently in and wastewater plant. Okay. So that means that in 2023, before I was fired, again, I submit to you as without proper cause, almost 20% of your entire water utility staff worked as a water plant janitor. Now, I ask the obvious question, since it's apparent now, so hard for your administrators and managers to find competent staff that stick around. How long has it been since you employed a janitor at the water plant? Last I knew, Rob decided to subcontract that work to a non-union entity in direct violation of the contract with workers because he was, according to Brian Klunk, it was more convenient for Rob to hire an outside contractor to do that union job than to go through the hiring process and employ someone from or surrounding community. Might I remind the board that it's Rob's duty to make sure that the utility is properly staffed, and you let him delegate this to a third-party contractor that end up doing, as I recall, a shockingly horrible job. I would also remind the board that it is your responsibility to ensure that the utility does what is in the best interest of the community, such as employing more people from the community, not to try and save a buck by hiring incompetent contractors that have no clue what is important and seemingly no work ethic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. All right. There is first of all, Mr. Urinich, is there anything from the cyber audience? Okay.
There is not.
All right, then we'll close that item. The next item is request for executive session Would someone like to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, but prior to do that, based on discussion in executive session, the board may take formal action upon reconvening the public meeting.
Okay,
I move to meet in executive session allowed by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G2 and G3 to discuss the purchase, sale, and/or lease of property for public benefit and pending or imminent court action, and to plead the CUE, the CUO, and representative from Manzer Gavin.
thank you, Mr. Rush. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Mondello? Okay, if no discussion for that. Roll call vote. Mr. Mondello?
Yes.
Mrs. Schnabel?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. Motion passes. We will go into executive session when the room is cleared. Thank you, officer, for your attendance tonight.
Yes.